Buenas tardes and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Mi Familia Charla. Mi Familia Charla, in honor of Pride Month here at HHF and in partnership with AARP. We take it very literal, and we also want to make sure that everybody understands that Pride is year-round. It's not just a particular month, but certainly we wanted to make sure that we are able to highlight and hear the stories of our LGBTQ plus familia. And we will highlight the stories of love and compassion, but also the unique struggles that the LGBTQ plus community face regarding their families, and hear from multi-generational speakers discussing acceptance, perseverance, and even from those starting to have families on what family means to them and to us and to everyone associated. On a logistical note, please use the chat box to ask any questions, raise any concerns, or just give us energy with your comments. Just make sure it's set to all audience and not to the default, which is panelists for some reason, because we want everyone to hear you. So go ahead and make that change right now. We will try to answer all of your questions at the end of the program in the chat and in the follow-up email that will include all of the resources that we shared today. This is wonderful to do with AARP. I remember doing something similar last year for Pride that really moved so many of us. And I just want to get started right now, but just thanking all the panelists. It's just before 4th of July and a long weekend, but all of you understand how important it is to celebrate Pride. I went to the parade with my children, and they understand the importance of supporting a community that needs to be part of our familia, because you are. And it's important that we all are able to share in what you go through in terms of supporting familia, because you're part of that familia. So let's get started. First, we would like to welcome Dr. Julie Bates, who is an Associate Director at AARP, California State Office. Dr. Bates.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm immensely proud to be here today on behalf of AARP in support of the LGBTQ plus community. And I do want to remind everyone that you have the opportunity to select the language that you want to hear our presentation today. So I'm checking so I make sure I get it right. Go to the interpretation icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen so you can hear us in Spanish or in English. As a social gerontologist, I have spent the better part of my career studying what it means to age for those who identify as LGBTQ. In 2020, I published my dissertation about the Stonewall generation, how their life experiences have made them resilient and have shaped the way they view aging. It is my goal as a gerontologist to bring this topic of aging, especially within our community, into the mainstream discussion. A new AARP national survey, Dignity 2022, the experience of LGBTQ older adults, found that, like most Americans, many LGBTQ adults over the age of 45 are concerned about aging. Additionally, their stress is compounded by the various factors, including discrimination and a lack of family support. We are not unique in our desires. Like our hetero and cis friends, we want to feel supported by our families, retire with financial stability to feel safe and to live joyously, and have access to housing and care without fear of discrimination. We want to be free to be ourselves. We don't want to feel alone as we age. Just over half of LGBTQ participants over the age of 45 say they have felt isolated or lonely at least some of the time. Most gay men reported that they were less likely to be married, less likely to have children or grandchildren, and more likely to live alone, which could put them at greater risk of becoming isolated as they age. Lesbian women fare slightly better. 44% of us and of those asked report being married, and almost 2/3 or 62% have children or grandchildren, compared to 29% of gay men. Now, transgender and non-binary and bisexual participants have partnership and childhood rates not far behind lesbian women, though they report feeling more concerned about isolation as they age. And yet, while we may feel concerned about our own lack of support, we will support our families and close communities. 63% of participants indicated that they have provided care to an adult loved one, and 61% anticipate caring for loved ones in the future. As you might have guessed, Latina participants were the most likely to anticipate these responsibilities. As you know, within the Hispanic culture, it is common to live in multi-generational households, and traditionally, women shoulder most of the caregiving responsibilities. If you do find yourself in the position of caregiver, I recommend that you download the AARP LGBTQ Community Caregiving Guide. This is a free planning tool specifically for those caring for loved ones who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. It breaks down the 5 main steps of caregiving, from starting the conversation to finding support locally in our community, and it tailors them to the unique issues that you might face in this position. Those who identify as LGBTQ have spent their entire lives fighting to be accepted by society, by their friends, by family, and even by themselves. We owe a lot to the Stonewall generation in this fight for acceptance. We were the first generation to come out to our families, the first to put forth policies to protect LGBTQ rights, and the first to make it okay to be gay. There are so many stories to tell, and today we will hear tales of love and compassion from Latino families with LGBTQ members, and we'll connect over the unique issues that we have or continue to face. So let's get started with our first speaker. First up, we'll be hearing from Guillermo Creamer, who uses he, him, L pronouns, who is from, I'm going to say that wrong, Worcester, Massachusetts, and he is a deputy director at the Foundation for Civic Leadership. Welcome, Guillermo.
Thank you, Dr. Bates. So it's Worcester, but it is hard for a lot of people the first time that they hear it. Thank you so much for having me here today. Saludos a la familia Latina here. I think it's super important for us to hold space with other LGBTQ Latinos. I think that's really important, especially in our community. Our hope is to make sure that we normalize the fact that we exist. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is an experience that I'm having actually in my hometown of Worcester, where recently the bishop has said that our Catholic school, in my case, my middle school, can no longer call itself Catholic for flying a pride flag. That might not be news to some of you might have seen it, but that actually was my middle school. And so I have proudly spoken up against that, because in my view, and I think in many of our views, inclusivity at its finest includes every single individual. All does not have an asterisk. And I think that's something that unfortunately is coming forward with the bishop's messaging. And I have proudly stood against the bishop's message and with the Nativity School's message. So I went to the Nativity School back in 2005 and graduated in 2008, where as a Catholic school, I was taught to really serve all individuals, not just a select few. And so I've been very proud of attending the school. And so I'm really hopeful that that the students that go to the school and that the products that come out of there are very much civil servants and individuals that are serving all residents. So the school has a pride flag and a Black Lives Matter flag that are flying under the American flag. And it was a community decision back in January of 2021. And ultimately in March of 2022, the bishop sent a letter stating that these flags, and I think the terminology was logos, go against Catholic teachings, and told the school to take them down, or they will no longer be able to call themselves a Catholic school. The school sided with its community and ultimately did not take the flags down. And so recently, about 2 weeks ago, the bishop put out a decree in the middle of Pride Month and just a couple of days before Juneteenth that ultimately stated the school was no longer allowed to call itself Catholic, ultimately stripping it from its Catholic abilities. I'm not going to speak for everyone here, but in my Catholic upbringing, we were taught to help every single person. not just a select few. And so I am proud that Nativity stood by its community and stood by its decision to continue flying the flags. And, I think when one person has decided that that's not how Catholicism works, and it goes up against, what the Pope has said even recently, as like a few days ago, LGBTQ Catholics exist. Very much so in our Latino community, very much so across the world. So very proud to stand with Nativity as a young Catholic LGBTQ individual. I have orgullo in that, and I'm really proud of that. So my hope is that other schools and entities throughout the country are potentially facing the same exact scenario and are standing with their LGBTQ Catholics and others, because I think the problem is that when you're dividing religion and LGBTQ folks, you start to really segregate, and that's not what you want. So I'm proud to stand with Nativity. I've had a dozen interviews throughout the country, and not just in the local papers, because this is something that affects all Catholic schools and all Catholic entities who are really questioning, what does it mean to be a Catholic? And in this case, it's a reminder to the bishops and others out there that LGBTQ Catholics exist, and they have a right to exist and a right to participate in religious, activity. So very happy to stand here with in supporting the school and supporting the mission of the fact that all does not have an asterisk. So thank you all for this space, and I'm going to hand it back.
Gee, it's bad when the person who's supposed to be moderating keeps herself on mute. Sorry, Guillermo, thank you so much for standing up for community and being a voice for Christ in community. I appreciate it. So next, we're going to turn to Cristela Solario Ruiz, who uses she and her pronouns. She's from Los Angeles, California, and she is a regional campaign manager at the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Welcome, Cristela.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for the invitation and to, Hispanic Federation, Heritage Foundation, and AARP for holding this space. So the theme of acceptance, compassion, and familia, I've been thinking a lot about that. And it's ever evolving. It has been ever evolving for me. How it looked like as a child, I think about the idea of how our communities statistically tend to have the lack of safety and the lack of acceptance, right? And growing up, not feeling like I had that because I didn't have the language, fear of potentially disappointing my elders, and not really like having that space to have a conversation for whatever cultural reason. And that evolving into my teen years, identifying that I had these feelings that didn't go away, that it only just got bigger, right? And having to think about how I negotiate with myself and my happiness versus this disappointment of family. And so as a young adult, I held the only thing that I could feel like I could control, and that was my education. And I held on to that to build a career so that I can chase this American dream, right? All while still not knowing how to provide for myself the safety and the grace that I needed from others. I needed to learn how to build that for myself, but I wasn't there yet. Now as an adult, I understand my mortality more, not only through my own aging, but as the unappointed caregiver of my elderly mother, who is dealing with some health issues. And as someone who is still growing up, I'm thinking about how I've had to learn how to create that safe space for myself, how I've had to figure out how to provide that grace for myself, and how hard that was, and has been and continues to be, because what I think what we don't understand is that what we go out seeking outside, which is love, acceptance, enter whatever that is for you, you got to be able to provide that for yourself first. And as I've gotten older, I've started to think about how expensive it is to live here, how expensive it is to just exist, and how most likely it's going to be up to me to take care of my mother financially, because other people in my family are not in that situation, in that privilege of flexibility. And so I'm thinking about financial, emotional, spiritual, health, even the physical health, on the importance of moving, the importance of making sure that that you tend to your body, because as you age, your body will then show those incremental decisions that you chose to give or not give to them. And so these last few years have been very humbling. But at the end of the day, what I think I'm trying to say is that it's crucial and it's super important that if that for oneself, that being able to allow yourself that space to make mistakes, to receive grace. If no one else gives it to you, you give it to yourself. To provide yourself that safe space to fail, to grieve, to do whatever it is that you need to do, because this world is hard. And in order for you to go out and fight that good fight, for example, I work for Planned Parenthood, right? I mentally cannot be there 100% of the time if I'm not taking care of myself. And I unfortunately was supposed to be in DC today for an action, but because my mother was sick, my mother was my priority. And so the fight will continue. Any action will continue, and I'll be there at a later time, and I need to take a step back and tend to what matters to me. Because even though she didn't have the language that I needed when I was young, I know that through her actions, by providing for me, she loved me, even though she didn't know how to express it. And as the child becomes the parent and the parent becomes the child, you start to really see humanity in a different way. And I think if anything you take out of this is just like, you are the thing that needs to be created. You are the person that needs to give you what you need. No one else. And if you get someone else to be able to provide for you, that's just like guacamole, it's extra, right? But you're the person that needs to be able to provide that for yourself before anyone else. I thank you for your time, and I give it back to you, Dr. Bates.
Cristela, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know you touched my heart, and I wish I was close enough to give you a hug and love and support. And just know that you are not alone in your struggle as a caregiver. There's a lot of information out there to help you navigate this stage of your life and your journey. AARP is here with information. If you ever want it, or if you have trouble finding it, you reach out to me. You have my email. We'll talk some more. But thank you so much. And so now I'd like to welcome Ricardo Vasquez, who uses he, him, his pronouns. Now, Ricardo lives in another place I haven't been before, so I'm going to probably mess up how we say it, but Chevalier, Maryland. And he is a realtor in DC, Maryland, and Virginia at RLAH Real Estate. Welcome, Ricardo.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and the space that you guys are created. I think this is very important. Important to talk, important for people to know that we all have families. We all, even though we are part of the community. This Pride Month, everybody expects you to have a flag and be out on the parade. This year, I did not go to the parade, mainly because we now have a little daughter. But I'm probably the happiest I've been in my life now. But fast forward, going back 30 years ago, I was at a seminary. My dream was to be a priest. And that's when I found out I was gay. And I accepted myself. And I said, I'm going to be out and proud and just be the best gay person I could be. But that didn't go well with the family because, 30 years ago back in Peru, where I'm from, it's a very macho society, not very accepting. So when the time went by, I was able to move to the States to pretty much create a life for myself where I felt safe, where I felt that that part of my life, being gay, wasn't all there is for me. So I moved here. I created a space where I felt fine. People were very accepting. Met my partner, who you can see in the picture there. We were together for many years. Marriage wasn't on my head ever since I became gay, because that didn't kind of exist in Peru. Like there were no gay people unless you got hair or you were not gay, basically. So that's what it was. So I'm terrible with scissors. I actually tried once at the seminary, and I cut a little piece of ear of one of the poor priests. So that wasn't for me. So I was happy that I met this person that meant the world to me. And once the gay marriage came to be, we were very excited about the possibility. On that trip, we were talking about how happy we were. That's in Nicaraguan Corn Island. And there was nothing there. It was just us. But there was something missing. Like I felt like I always wanted a family, and we talked about it. And we try and try and try and try and try and try. And we almost gave up until we met this angel that you see there. She contacted us pretty much in February. We had a conversation and said, like, let's talk about talking about family, because we have several issues that happened that weren't conducive to anything. And she called in November and said, like, this is my last call to see if you're still interested, because we tried 6 years prior with her and other people. And I said, let me think about it. 5 minutes later, I said, let's try it again. And it took the last try. So she got pregnant. We were very excited that finally our dream to be parents, it was coming to be. And that's when we kind of realized, okay, now we should marry, because we want this child to be, come to this family. And this, we married in August. Our baby was born in September. So it was right back to back. There she is. That's Mishki, which is Quechua for sweet as honey. She has changed our lives. But something that is very interesting when you become a parent is, before her, it was my struggles and navigate the world and trying to feel accepted. Even though I was out and about, I had my partner, but it was always kind of trying to prove yourself with other people. And now with the baby here, it's like now you have this responsibility that you have to worry about, and they have to take care of her. And it's scary. It's a scary world. And we talk about all the time. And it's interesting because when we go outside, and it's like everybody's still asking, oh, so where's the mom? I say, no, it's just the two dads. There's no mom. So I feel like having the baby is coming out again and again and again. Every time we go out, it's just like coming out and just proving yourself. And this baby it's been a miracle baby. It's brought us so much happiness to our lives. And it's just making us stronger and making us feel more proud. And that's how I celebrated Pride Month for our family, is to be proud and to be out and just give our 100% to her. And we've been in support for both of our families throughout this time that we've been living in the country. And a lot of our families look to us as a support system. And they see this beautiful baby now, part of our family is kind of making them accept the fact that, yes, we are gay and we are, this can happen. And that's our way to say, you have to be proud of who you are. It gets better. It just gets better. And it's just a matter of accepting. It's a daily thing, for us. And we couldn't be happier to have her in our life and to be part of this time that you have provided. And then having her and showing people constantly in our families is to tell other ones that are on the fence, should I come out? Is it a safe time to be gay or, part of the community? It is. I mean, because that's the only time that when you become yourself, that's when you're the happiest. And that's where we are right now. And
Ricardo, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your precious little one with us. I'm like, oh, you could just show me a million pictures of her and I'd be happy for the rest of the day. And thank you. Coming out is a continuous and I think a lifelong process. And you're doing it beautifully with you and your daughter and your husband. So congratulations to you. And thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for the space. Mm-hmm.
And now I'd like to welcome Emma Sandoval, who uses she, her, hers pronouns. And she's from Washington, D.C., and she is a health educator and navigator at La Clínica del Pueblo. Welcome, Emma.
Muchas gracias por invitarme. Voy a hacer mi presentación en español y estoy un poco nerviosa, les confieso. Recuerdo que uno de mis profesores siempre decía, es bueno admitir que estás nerviosa antes de comenzar un speech porque eso te da fuerza. Entonces, es lo que trato de hacer. Y bueno, bienvenidos. Hola a todos, todas y todes, a las personas que están aquí. Mi nombre es Emma Sandoval, como ya dijeron, y trabajo para la Clínica del Pueblo como educadora de salud. Es un placer estar con cada uno de ustedes en esta plataforma y poder compartir sobre mis experiencias como parte de la comunidad LGBT. Quisiera comenzar hablando un poco más sobre mí y mi infancia y con eso dar referencia al tema enfoque. Soy una mujer inmigrante de El Salvador que desde muy pequeña sabía que era distinta, que mi mente no era como otros niños, que conocía y no era precisamente mi género asignado al nacer lo que me identificaba como persona. Llegué a este país no con un sueño americano, precisamente llegué aquí escapando de la discriminación y el odio hacia mi persona, desde profesores en la escuela, desde amigos y personas que ni siquiera conocía. Muchas personas querían hacerme daño y mi madre y mi padre, que eran mi núcleo familiar y donde yo me sentía protegida cuando les confesé todo lo que me estaba sucediendo, ellos no pudieron entenderlo y se enfocaron más en que yo estaba equivocada. Entonces, ese núcleo familiar que para mí era protección, en cierto tiempo se convirtió en un grupo de personas enemigo para mí. Creo que como seres humanos a todos nos gusta ser parte de, y hubo un buen tiempo de mi vida en que yo no me sentía parte de nada. Y gracias a la información y el conocimiento, que pude darme cuenta de quién realmente era yo y pude lograr llamarme Emma Sandoval. Y aprendí una gran lección que me dejó de por vida, que es el conocimiento es poder. Después de 5 años sin ver a mi familia, tuve la oportunidad de reencontrarme con ellos nuevamente. Y cuando iba en camino a verlos, recuerdo que pensé y dije, ellos jamás me han visto como la mujer que soy ahora. ¿Qué les voy a decir? Recuerdo que entré al cuarto y estaban mis hermanos con sus respectivas esposas e hijos y me dieron la bienvenida y me llamaron por mi nombre que fue asignado cuando nací. Inmediatamente tuve una reacción negativa a esto. Después aprendí y dije, tengo que aprender a comunicarme con ellos y tener una comunicación receptiva con ellos. Escuchar qué es lo que ellos me tienen que decir y cuáles son sus dudas o cuáles son esas preguntas que ellos tienen hacia mi persona. Y gracias a eso fue que yo pude aprender de ellos y ellos de mí y pudimos crear un lazo mucho más fuerte después de 5 años. Me di cuenta que esos 5 años perdidos son algo que no van a regresar, pero crearon una gran lección en mi vida, que fue que la comunicación y la información hacen un cambio real en el mundo y en los núcleos familiares que son muy importantes. Ahora me doy cuenta que esto puede cambiar, pero no era así antes. Y historias como la mía creo que son historias de aprendizaje ahora, que pueden ayudar a otras personas, a otras familias, a otros padres que lidian con hijos gays, hijes trans, para que puedan aprender y puedan educarse acerca de estos temas. Y me siento muy feliz que ahora, que uno de mis sueños de toda mi vida fue el poder llegar a trabajar en una organización y crear estos espacios en los que podamos informar a las demás personas acerca de estos temas tan importantes para que esto no vuelva a pasar.
Emma, thank you so much for sharing your story and being able to be your true self. Thank you so much. And now we're going to hear from Larry Villegas Perez, who uses he, him, his pronouns, and he is an MS in counseling psychology and a hypnotherapist. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Go ahead, Larry. Actually, I think.
Done. Thank you very much, Dr. Bates. Thank you, Hispanic Heritage Foundation, Tony Tijerino and his team, and AARP. My name is Larry Villegas Perez, but because it's not Spanish class, I'm not going to make anybody roll their R's. I just wanted to share with you a portion of my story. La familia, mi familia, my family, my identities. That's how everything began. So I am not only my name, which was given to me by my parents. I also consider myself two-spirit because sometimes I know that I am not a guy or a girl. I'm not a man or a woman, but I am both because the spirit of my ancestors is within me. However, usually I present myself as a guy because the beard, is there. But then some people think, are you a trans man? Why? Because my hips don't lie. So then I have all these gifts that I embrace, but I learned to embrace with time. I'm a citizen of the world, even though I am Venezuelan by birth, but I'm also an American because America is a continent. I am an educated man or person because I have a master in counseling psychology. I have long hair because of my grandmother, who was pure Indian from Yaracuy in Venezuela. I'm a good cook, and I'm a youngster at heart. But eventually, I will join AARP too, don't worry. So, see how identities play a role on who we are. And we are all of them in front of our families. So you see all those pictures from very serious to very sexy. Yes, I'm all that, like many of you. Now we can go to the next one. We come out and then we get kicked out. I don't have to explain that. All kinds of problems, all kinds of issues, all kinds of discussions with our families. In my case, mine took me to see a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and later on, I myself joined an ex-gay program with a church that for 8 years, I didn't even go to a movie theater or to a bar. Even though I don't drink alcohol because that's my decision, but I love dancing. So we can go to the next one. Then as we are out, we find other soulmates, people on the same walk of life, people with the same ideals, people with the same identities, people with the same enthusiasm, with the same, desire for living. So encontramos otras almas gemelas. And we join them. And we embrace them. And we adopt them. And then they adopt us back. So what we do is we join, we get together, we embrace each other, we become that other family, because family for us is important. And I wanted to show as many pictures of that chosen family that I had with you today to let you know that it is possible. We are not alone. And I don't like speaking in negative. So we have a wealth of people around us, like all of you, like all my friends in the picture. And now we can go to the next one. Now, as we mature, like others have said today, we heal, but it's a process. It takes time. It takes effort. We have to do it every day. We cannot become a better community until we heal and we forgive us for believing that we were not good enough, them for not knowing better at that time, and we reconnect. And we love each other again. And we respect ourselves. And as a consequence, they respect us back, which is indispensable. And then we can go to the next one. And now we keep the party going with the old family, the blood family, and the new family. And we become a greater community and an awesome group of people. And now we go to the last one. And I thank you. I am Larry Villegas again. And my time is up. Now you two are my family. So, gracias. Thank you.
Larry, thank you so much. And how powerful it is, that statement of forgiving ourselves for not being who we were meant to be sooner. That's such a powerful thing, to be able to forgive ourselves and to be able to walk in our power and to be seen as ourselves and to love ourselves for who we are. Because once we do that, everyone else comes on board and joins the party with us. So Larry, thank you so much for those insights. And now I'd like to share the conversation with Nathalie Huerta, who uses she, her, they, them pronouns from Salt Lake City, who is from the Queer Gym. Welcome, Nathalie.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I wanted to share actually a story that I've never said, actually even out loud. As I was thinking about what experience I wanted to share with this, I realized that, and I'm going to freestyle it. It's going to come from the heart. I'm going to put it out. And so I think I'm in a place now where I have a little bit more insight on how I ended here. So about 6 years ago, I married my wife. My wife had a prior marriage to a man, a Filipino macho man, and they had 2 children together. I remember when we first started dating, my wife was, the kid's father was throwing a little birthday party and invited me to go. And I was like, this is still really early in our relationship, not quite ready for that. Have a good time. I could tell that he was excited to meet me, but I don't feel like it was for the right reason. I felt like it was like a sexualized situation where he wanted to kind of see his ex-wife and like this new lesbian girlfriend. And I think there was some kind of perverse ideas around that invitation. I didn't feel comfortable going. I did not go. My second experience was meeting her family. I was the first woman that her family has seen her with or was about to see her with. And I remember they made a big deal out of it. And my first initial reaction was like, this is cool. Like, this is accepting. I'm excited to like be welcome like this. This is going to be really cool. When we show up, her mother did not show up because she had no interest in meeting me, which obviously really hurt my wife. She went out, drove to the mom's house, and was like, basically, essentially dragged her out to meet me. Needless to say, awkward situation. And then comes in the kids. The kids were the part that I was the most afraid of, if I'm being honest. And actually, that ended up being the easiest part of it because children are children. They're innocent. They love. They accept a lot easier than adults do. And I came in thinking this was going to be the most challenging part. It was actually the most loving part. It was managing the adults around the children that proved to be very challenging. And I think, one, realizing that when you're stepping into a blended family, and then on top of that, you throw on the queer layer, especially if you're the first one that the family has seen their family member with. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and I had no idea what to expect. And one thing I've realized is that when you step into a situation like that, you're stepping into a broken situation. There's a lot of feelings hurt. There's a lot of trauma for everybody involved. And now you're coming in as somebody new, in my case, excited, ready to love, ready to like, this is going to be fun, guys. And then having to deal with all the hurt adults around that experience was something that I underestimated. I had no idea that was coming my way. And then as the children grew, at that time, one kid was 13, the other kid was 4. Now they're 21 and 13. And seeing that the dynamic between the kids and myself never really changed. Like, there was always love, there was always respect. That felt really, really good. And then I experienced kind of the second level of this was, okay, obviously I'm not going away, I'm not going anywhere. And the kid's father is not going anywhere. And the more friction between us, the more harm it does for the children, and honestly, the adults involved in it too. And I have chosen to use this opportunity whenever I do interact with the kid's father, as obviously I've chosen to use that as an opportunity to practice my growth, right? When I feel he's not at that part of the journey quite yet for himself, he presents a lot of opportunities for me to practice my healing. And so I've chosen to lean into it. And the last few interactions, I would almost say that he's starting to see the light. Sometimes taking the higher road. It's always the best road, but it's always the loneliest road. And it's still no reason to not extend the invitation to come join. And the best way to extend that invitation is by practicing your own healing, your own self-care, your own personal growth to hopefully hopefully better the entire family unit. And so that's something for me that I have just chosen to change my mindset around, to be honestly more recently than not. And I can already see the shift, and I can already see the betterment for the kids, for myself, for my wife, and even the kid's dad. So, the second child is still 13. We still have a few years to go. But then after that, the family grows and they'll have their partners. And I just hope that in the future, we can all continue this healing journey together, because family is very important to me. And I think it is important to everybody that's involved in this blended family. We just haven't quite figured out the little tweaks, the best way to make it work in a loving way. So that is my story. Thank you for letting me tell it for the first time ever.
Well, and Nathalie, thank you for trusting us with sharing this story for the first time. I'm glad that we have made a space for you to feel comfortable to share this journey that you're on, and know that you are not alone. Having a blended family is often challenging. One of the things, if it gives you any hope, my daughter now says that I birthed her and my wife birthed her from her heart. You know, so I wish you that kind of success with your children. It sounds like you might already be there with them. And so now I'd like to ask Patty Hernandez, who uses she, her pronouns, who is also from Washington, D.C. And she is the founder, and I hope I don't say this terribly wrong, of Aarp. I'm going to get it wrong. So I'm just going to let Patty tell us. Please, Patty, go ahead.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre, gracias. Mi nombre es Patty Hernández, soy salvadoreña. Vine en el año 2014, en agosto del 2014, a los Estados Unidos. Y bueno, hablar un poco de mí, recientemente conformamos hace 2 años una organización que se llama Centro Internacional Arcoíris. Es una organización que trabaja para la comunidad LGBTI. Es una organización joven, pues que busca trabajar y accesar servicios de los beneficios que hay en DC, Maryland y Virginia para la comunidad LGBT. Quiero contarles que cuando me hablaron de la familia, que este tema era la familia, yo soy de un país donde la comunidad trans y principalmente salir del closet en los años 80, yo tengo 50 años, y cuando salí del closet a los 13 años, a la fuerza, porque nunca estuve en el closet para mí, porque todo el mundo sabía que yo era diferente, right? Yo nunca pude ocultarme, nunca pude ser un gay boy del closet, porque siempre se me notó que era una persona diferente. En los años 80, la discriminación era más grande en mi país, entonces esa discriminación me dejó sin familia. Mi papá murió cuando yo tenía 9 años, a consecuencia de una cirrosis hepática, y mi mamá se vino para Canadá y nos dejó en El Salvador. Y entonces cuando llegué a los 13 años, me quedé sin familia porque mi familia no quería un hijo gay, y mucho menos travesti, drag queens, y mucho menos ligado al SIDA, a la pandemia del VIH, porque si recuerdan en los 80, el SIDA, ser gay era SIDA, en El Salvador así lo era. Y entonces lo que sucedió es que me quedé sin familia y pues tuve que hacer mi propia familia. Normalmente nosotros hacemos nuestra propia familia. Toda la mayoría de las personas LGBT son privilegiados y privilegiadas las personas LGBT, pues que se quedan con sus verdaderas familias. Entonces, cuando yo me vine a los Estados Unidos, me vine con mi esposo, con una persona con la que había estado, con un hombre que había estado por muchos años con él. Nos venimos juntos y ahora él es mi ex esposo, pero es mi amigo, sigue siendo mi amigo, porque nos venimos juntos, pero dejamos aparte de nuestra familia, que eran 3 perros. Cuando yo vine a los Estados Unidos, la gente aquí me decía, olvídese de sus perros. Usted no va a poder vivir con sus perros en Estados Unidos. Los perros son caros. Son 3 perros. Aquí vamos, le voy a llevar a un shelter. Aquí hay perros en los shelters. Puede conseguir otros perros. Deje esos perros allá. No más perros en los Estados Unidos. Y entonces yo le dije a esa persona, lo siento. Y decía mi abuelita, que en paz descanse, que Dios la tenga en gloria, o todos en la cama o todos en el suelo. Entonces, porque me decía mi abuelita, la familia tiene que estar junta. Entonces, al año exactamente trabajé muy duro. Recuerdo que entré a trabajar a Casa Rubí en ese tiempo, pero también yo agarré un part-time de andar haciendo limpieza en los baños de una escuela de DC. Y al año exactamente, un año, 11 meses después, perdón, 11 meses de haber llegado a los Estados Unidos, yo tenía a mis 3 perros viviendo conmigo. Conmigo y con mi esposo, con mi ex esposo. Entonces, yo le cuento a la gente que cuando yo les cuento que yo me traje a mis perros que están acá, ahora son unos perros ancianos. Tengo 3 perros, 2 me quedaron a mí y uno se llevó mi esposo y están ancianos. Usted estaba loca. Usted estaba loca. Sí, estaba loca. Pero era mi familia. Yo no podía dejar a mis perros en mi país. Y aparte de tener a mis perros, yo tengo a mucha familia LGBT. Tengo un grupo de amigas que cuando fue la pandemia, creo que algo que nos dejó la pandemia del COVID, que nos demostró quiénes eran nuestros verdaderos amigos y amigas. La familia se demostró realmente en esa pandemia, en ese encierro. Entonces, ese es mi testimonio que les quiero contar, que a veces a la comunidad LGBTIQ+, nos toca hacer nuestra propia familia. Y cuando inmigramos, cuando tenemos que emigrar, dejamos todo allá. Y eso, que cuando pasa eso, queda parte de nuestras vidas. Cuando yo me vine en esos 11 meses que yo no pude tener a mi familia completa, unida, no hubo un segundo de mi vida, no hubo ni un segundo en que yo no pensé en mis perros. Entonces, a veces me pregunto por qué algunas madres de personas trans como yo no quieren a sus hijos o padres, ¿verdad? Y ahora yo a mi mamá, yo no tengo relación con mi mamá desde hace 30 años, no la veo, he visto a mi mamá desde hace 30 años y siempre me pregunto si ella me habrá extrañado tanto como yo extrañé a mis perros, ¿verdad? Es bien difícil, pero ahora yo le perdono cuando yo todavía no puedo salir de los Estados Unidos. Estoy en un proceso esperando mi residencia. Gloria a Dios. Recientemente gané mi asilo y estoy esperando mi residencia. Yo voy a ir a visitar a mi mamá a Canadá porque hay círculos en nuestras vidas que debemos de cerrarlos, debemos de terminarlos. Y uno de los sueños que tengo es ver a mi mamá y pues yo no tengo nada que perdonarle porque yo entiendo que para ella fue muy difícil tener una persona trans. Entonces pienso que la familia no se debe de abandonar, aún así sea un perico, un loro, un pollo, un hijo, una hija y un perro. Si hay posibilidades de traérselos, se tienen que venir con nosotros. Muchísimas gracias. Espero que hayan tenido un excelente mes de junio para todas y todos.
Patty, thank you so much for sharing your story and for, of course, being your true self and all the work that you are doing. Thank you so very much. And now I'd like to turn to Luis Martinez, who uses he, him pronouns, from Rogers, Arkansas, who is a real estate agent at eXp Realty. I'm going to assume Northwest Arkansas branch. Welcome, Luis.
Thank you, Dr. Bates. Thank you, everybody, for opening the space. And yeah, I'm from Rogers, Arkansas. Not very common to hear Latinos in Arkansas, but yes, we have plenty of Latinos. And when I got invited to talk about be part of the LGBT community, but also like talking the topic that is can be a little bit difficult, especially I think for everybody, you know, when it comes to family, on acceptance to who you are. So if we can start with the first picture that I want to show you. My grandma this is my mom's mother. She has been a beautiful angel to me. But it was very difficult for me to approach her and let her know who truly I was. My grandma, we grew up being Catholic, as Crystal mentioned earlier. I grew up Catholic too, where we used to pray every day. You know, I was very involved into church, but there was something inside me that I was very afraid to accept myself. I don't like to say that you have to open up, get out of the closet or put in a label on yourself. You just accept yourself for who you are. And when I had the opportunity to talk to her, I was very afraid to do that. And it was one day in the afternoon that I went to her room. She was actually doing her rosary at the moment. She finished. And I kneel in front of her and tell her, Grandma, I need to talk to you. And because I need to talk to you because you're very special to me, I need to share something with you. And I told her what was going on. I'm accepting myself, for who I am. Probably it's not what you were expecting. And I'm very afraid to do this to you. And I hope that doesn't change our relationship. Instead, it makes it more bigger. And when I had the opportunity to tell her that, I just told her, I'm gay. This is who I am. That doesn't gonna change my values on how much I love you, how much everything that you taught me. And her answer was, it's okay. As long as you're happy, my heart is gonna be happy. And no matter who you are, I'm gonna accept you. And she's been there for me all the time. My grandpa, which is in the next picture, I didn't have the opportunity to open up with him. There was a picture before. Because there was a big difference between education for them to understand actually what is to be part of the Lgbt community, be different, Unfortunately, he passed away 2 years ago for COVID. And I wish I could be able to speak to him for truly who I was, but I didn't have the opportunity to tell him. But at the same time, I just feel relief at some point that I can just be myself and not be able to explain who I am to, give an explanation to anybody. I love my grandpa. He was a very important piece in my life too. He was actually my dad's dad. And just behind my grandma, if you go to the next picture, our relationship with my grandma, even though right now she cannot walk anymore, I got the opportunity to make one of her promises that I did to her to take her to Europe. And with my mom and my grandma, they has been my biggest support and all my family. It hasn't been easy to open up and accept my truly self. Funny thing, I had never had the opportunity to be in Pride Parade. And it's been 2 years that I've been experiencing and sharing that with my mom. This year, I got the opportunity just to do it with only my mom, myself. And it was raining, it was pouring, and she was there with me, having fun. And I took my grandma to a gay market that I was created here in Rogers. And she was just asking me questions like, what is that? What's that? But she was very open to that. She wasn't a judge about anything. She was just taking it all in. And that's one of the things that sometimes doesn't matter like how you present things, always remembering your values and true love. And understanding that sometimes our grandparents or our family is not because they don't know, it's because they're not educated to be open to that level. And they don't know how to express or how to accept it. So I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity. And I hope that you find my story a little bit inspirational. And thank you for opening these spaces for the community. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Luis. It takes such courage to come out to the people that we love the most, because we don't want to disappoint them. And we know what their expectations have been our whole lives of who we were going to be. So congratulations for finding the courage to talk to your family, to your grandma and your mother. And I'm so heartened to hear how they have embraced you and loved you as your true self. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
So now we are almost to the end of our time together, and we're going to close out by hearing from Armando Toole, he, him pronouns, from Washington, D.C., and he is the Chief Creative Officer at Armando Multimedia. Welcome, Armando.
Thank you very much. Saludos, amigos, amigas, familia. Saludos from Mexico City, where I'm on assignment, but very proud, muy orgulloso to join the Hispanic Heritage Foundation on this Pride Month charla. A lot of the things that I heard touched me deeply because in many ways, they reflected my journey as a gay man and as a caregiver. About 4 years ago, I was a successful Emmy Award-winning journalist in Washington, D.C., working for National Public Radio at the time, when it became my responsibility to care for my mother, who was 95 years old at the time. I realized that I couldn't keep that job and do it properly and care for my mother properly. So I made the very difficult decision of leaving journalism, which I had devoted my entire life to and I loved, because I had a responsibility to care for my mother. And as I cared for her in Washington, D.C., with the help of a very good friend of mine, a trans woman, Misterio, Misty, she's not listening, but I love you. I realized that I would not be able to care for my mother with the kind of care that she deserved because of the expense of caring for an older adult in Washington, D.C. No matter the government subsidies, no matter what, it was just not the kind of care that I could give my mother and the kind of attention. And I was not going to send my mother to a retirement home or to any of those facilities. So with my partner, who's Nicaragua, we made the decision of going to Nicaragua and caring for my mother there, where for the same amount of money that I would spend in Washington, D.C. for very bad care, I could give my mother a great life and we could all live there and I could continue my work. And that's what we did. So for 3.5 years, we celebrated birthdays. We celebrated my mother. We gave her a wonderful, wonderful end of her life. My mother did not pass away from COVID. My mother passed away because the last grains of that hourglass ran out at the age of 99. But I paid a price for taking my mom to Nicaragua because years earlier I had done a story about how that government, that fascist, communist dictatorship had gone after the LGBTQ community that dared to protest and say, you're not what we believed you were. That story won me an Emmy, but that story also made it impossible for me to return to Nicaragua a year ago when my partner called me and said, your mom is dying, you need to come. And so my mom passed away, not with me, but with my partner, who cared for her as, God damn it, Tony, you asked me to talk about this and I didn't want to talk about this. She passed away because my partner was there. He brought a pastor to give her solace and he held her hand. And so I paid a price for being gay. I paid a price for being a journalist. But I would pay that price again because we gave my mother a wonderful, wonderful, almost 4 years of her life. And now as we as individual members of the LGBTQ familia celebrate and have our reasons to be happy and enjoy Pride Month, I say to you that we are in grave danger because the forces of hatred and intolerance and ignorance are coming for us in this country. And they're waving a Bible in one hand and an American flag in the other. And they've wrapped themselves up in that. And with that flag and with that Bible, they're going to send us to the gas chambers. And so just like we did in Stonewall, and just like we acted up when half of America was willing to let us die of AIDS because they didn't give a shit, and because we were faggots and queers and maricones and jotos and huecos and all the names that they call us, and they're going to start calling us that again, don't for a minute think that they're going to stop at taking half of this country's ability to decide what to do with their body. Because they're going to come after marriage. They're going to come after our ability to raise and affirm trans children. And if they can make us disappear, they're with their Bible and with their flag, that's what they plan to do. So it's time, my friends, to act up and vote at every level and talk to your family and tell them, if you love me, if you love your son, if you love your grandkid, you need to act up because the forces of evil are coming after us. Thank you.
Armando, thank you so much for that passionate response. And I'm so sorry for the loss of your mom. And I appreciate you sharing your story with us. But you are absolutely right. We have a responsibility to come to the polls every election that we can and have our voice lifted up because we have the power. If we vote, we have the power. So Armando, thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists. What an inspiring day of stories. Events like these are so important. They foster hope for the future and remind us that we are immensely connected. We are the LGBTQ plus community, La Comunidad. And no matter what we faced in the past, no matter where we've been, we are not alone to face it in the future. I cannot stand here today and say that everything is perfect. We know that, and Armando just really laid it out for us. In our AARP National Survey, Dignity 2020, the experience of LGBTQ older adults, 85% of all LGBTQ adults surveyed are at least somewhat concerned about discrimination against their sexual orientation. And when you talk to those who are 65 and over, age discrimination surpasses these concerns. These different forms of discrimination have a trickle-down effect on various areas of our lives. I'll cite home buying as one example. Nearly half of all Hispanic Latino participants expressed concern about needing to hide their LGBTQ identity to access housing options for older adults. And almost half of all transgender and non-binary participants fear rental or home buying discrimination, whether or not they want to purchase a home. Discrimination also affects how we feel about our retirement earnings. With a lifetime of institutionalized discrimination in healthcare, employment, and social services, it should come as no surprise that the vast majority of participants, 86%, are at least somewhat concerned about having enough income or savings in order to retire. That said, I do believe that humanity always triumphs and that where there are problems, there are people and organizations that step in to help. And AARP is one of those organizations. In the guiding words of our founder, Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, what we do for all. In addition to fighting for anti-discriminatory reform in workplaces, whether against age, sex, race, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity and expression, AARP lobbies to amend the anti-discrimination laws so that they include sexual orientation and ensure the right of same-sex couples to be housed together in assisted living facilities or in nursing homes and other long-term services and support settings. As for retirement income, AARP supports programs and policies that permit people in kinship care situations and others with an insurable interest as a pensioner to share in or receive survivor benefits from private pensions. If you're interested in learning more about how AARP is involved in the LGBTQ plus community, visit our LGBTQ Pride page at aarb.org/home-family Voices LGBTQ Pride. To see all of our content from LGBTQ history to more inspirational stories about pride and resilience and acceptance. Here you'll also be able to find the AARP LGBT Community Caregiving Guide. It'll help you find resources and the positions to care for the loved ones. You have a right to age with dignity and to be able to enjoy the same familial benefits as all Americans. As we've learned today, love is love. It has no gender, no sexual orientation, or even age. As we heard today, support exists all around us. Don't be afraid to lean on one another. We are the Stonewall generation. We are resilient, strong, and united. We all move forward together. Thank you all for joining us today, especially to our speakers who have shared their stories. Please keep an eye out for future Hispanic Heritage Federation Charlas, and we hope that you will have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us in community today. Thank you and goodbye.